מעפרך הטוב נוצרתי, וטל שחרית שלך הוא נשמתי. בגן העדן התהלכתי, שם אור נסתר בתוך תוכי. ולא שמרתי, לא שמרתי את שיר הארץ הטובה, שאת כל כוחה נתנה לי, נתנה ונעזבה.
עם אות של קין על מצחי, הרחק נדדתי עם בניי, ליטוע גן נוסף ביקשתי, גם שם ביקשוני משנאי. כל גירוש או אהבה זרה, שנית הרגשתי בן חורג, הבא הקץ שמעתי קול, עמוק ובתוכי קורא. אל החיטה, אל ארץ טוב.
Okay, so what made me decide to stay was, I had come just for a year to Nechala, and it wasn't even my plan to come to Israel, but I came to Israel. My principal suggested it and I took the advice. And I came to be in the first Nechala program for American girls. It's called Machal, Machleket Chutz La'aretz. And I was in that first year. But what made me stay, what made me want to stay, was the ride up to Yerushalayim from the airport. When I got off the plane and I got into a Nesher taxi with my friend, and we drove up the whole way to when we came to Shar Hagai, and then when it starts going up kind of up a hilly kind of area to Yerushalayim, and on the left we saw it was just before Shkia, just before sunset, and we saw how the sun was hitting the stone, the Jerusalem stone, and it was so beautiful. So I just fell in love with it, and I also felt like I was coming home, which might be because my grandparents were from Israel, but in any case, it just felt like I was coming home, and I decided right then, I don't think I want to leave this country. And then I stayed. Every year I asked my parents for another year, and I stayed and I stayed and I stayed. And here I am. Another difference in my personal life between then and now is that when I came I was just 17 and I came on my own. I really didn't, although I had some family in Israel from my Ima's side. I didn't really have close family, and until 8 years after I came in 1977, my dear first cousins Josh and Judy came from America and came on Aliya, and they actually lived in my neighborhood by Fagan, so I was able to see them a lot. I went to them a lot. They were a wonderful support to me through all kinds of things, and I got much closer to them than I had even been before, so that was very exciting. And then, let's see, 77 to 2007, 30 years later, 30 years later, your family came, my dear nieces and nephew, starting with your family, and then Bracha and her family, and then Noam and his family, and then a year later, Grandma and Zaidi, my brother and sister-in-law. So I had so much family here then. In the last 7 years, I just feel like I'm very surrounded by family and love, and it's wonderful. And I get to see you growing up and becoming such a beautiful, fine young lady. And oh, I remembered something that was happened to me when a month after I came to Israel. I had an appendix attack and I had to have my appendix out. And just like you did. When was it? A year or two ago? Yeah. And you were in Sharet Tzedek, you were in the new Sharet Tzedek, and I was in the old Sharet Tzedek, which was on Rehov Yafo, and is now Reshut HaShitur. And they were all wonderful to me. So we have a lot in common.
שבתי, שמעתי קול מוכר, בניי חצו מדבר, עברו עוד ים.
Let's start at the beginning. When your Ima was growing up, and when Noam was growing up, and Avner and Bracha, We never talked about moving to Israel. It was not part of our plans. We loved Israel, and we used to talk about Israel, but we never thought we were going to go there. When the children got bigger, when Naima got bigger, and after high school, when she went to Israel to learn for a year, and when Avner went to Israel to learn, and Noam and Bracha, they came back and they were all very excited about living in Israel. They loved the year that they were here learning. And, but still, they went off to college, but in their minds they had that dream that they wanted to come back here. And that's what happened, little by little. First, Yaima was the first one who came. Then Bracha came. Then Noam came. Even Avner, who now lives in America, even he came. And he lived here for 8 years, for a long time. He was the first one to come to Israel. Well, when everybody decided to make Aliya, Zaidi and I were left in America all by ourselves. And when it was time for Zaidi to retire, we were thinking, where would we like to go? Where would be the best place for us to move? And of course, the best place to move is to go to a place where you're close to your children and your grandchildren, so you'll be able to spend a lot of time with them. Avner was in California, but the 3 other children were in Israel. So we decided that instead of staying in Boston, we would come to Israel. Every year, of course, we'd go back to visit Avner, and maybe he would come here and visit us. But we would make the move to Israel. And that's how we came here. And whenever I think about how we made Aliya, I always say to Zaidi, I'm so happy that our children came here. Because if it wouldn't have been for them, we never would have made Aliya. And now that we're here, we're so happy that we did it, and we can't imagine living in any other place except in Eretz Israel. And that's how we got here. Israel was declared a state in 1948. I started going to school, kindergarten and first grade, in the early 1950s. And when I think back, I don't remember in school them talking about Israel so much. I have very clear memories about every Tu B'Shvat, and I'm sure everybody my age remembers this. They used to give out these trees, these pictures of trees, and you used to buy stamps. Each stamp at that time I think was 5 cents or 10 cents, and maybe there were 30 stamps that you put on the tree. They were like little leaves. And when you filled it all up, you got a certificate that a tree was planted in Israel in your honor. I remember that a lot. I remember in 1958, which was 10 years, Israel was 10 years old then. I remember in school we had a big celebration with dancing and singing. But besides that, I don't remember that much. I did find in Grandma and Grandpa's house, after we sold the house and we were cleaning everything out, I found a lot of Israel bonds. Do you know what that is? That's when people give money to Israel and you get a certificate that says that you've invested in Israel. And I found a lot of them. And my parents never spoke to me about it, but apparently they had strong feelings toward Israel, and they were willing to donate a nice large amount of money to the country.
שמעתי קול שופר
מעפרך הטוב נוצר.
Okay, I also want to tell you, Temima, what happened in 1948. You know what that year was? I'm sure you do. That's when Israel became a state. And we were then living in Brooklyn. We left Toronto. I wasn't so happy about it, but we left. Anyhow, when the news came on that Israel was a state, we went wild. we ran out to the main avenue. A lot of people may know 13th Avenue in Borough Park, and danced and danced. I'm pretty sure it was a Friday, because we probably had to stop when it was Shabbos, but everyone just came out and danced. That was what happened, and I remember that very well.
נוצרתי וטל שחרית שלך הוא נשמתי.
I think, Temima, you may have heard me tell it, because I love to tell it to whoever wants to hear, even if they've heard it. Anyhow, so in 1952, that's how many years? That's 4 years after the state was created. So I was in sort of like a seminary, and we had a choir. We had a choral group, and the choral master, or the person who led our choir, said there's going to be a Zimriya, first time Zimriya in Israel this summer, and I want to take you, the choir. And we said, wow, couldn't believe it. And we were going to Israel. I get goosebumps now thinking about it. And we practiced, and it was going to be choirs from all over the world, from every country you can name, Temima. And every country, the choirs from every country, they were asked to sing songs that represent their country. So we sang Negro spirituals, I don't know if you know what that is, but a certain kind of song. And we sang Western songs that were very, Western. And we did also sing Hebrew songs too. And we traveled all over. And it was the most exciting thing I ever experienced. But there was nothing in the country. The country had nothing. There were no cars. You didn't see any cars. Can you imagine that? No cars. The food, there was no food. Everything was rationed. So if they wanted to buy sugar, first of all, you couldn't buy anything. You go into a makolet and it's empty. There were shelves, and then you'd see one can of grapefruit juice. Can you imagine that? And everything was rationed. Ration, that means they could only have a little bit. And we didn't want to, we were young, and we didn't want to, well, some of the choirs were not so young, but our choir anyhow, we didn't want to eat food that was so little. So they gave us, I always laugh, they gave us eggplant, and more eggplant. And that's when I got to know eggplant. But the funny thing is, I still love it. I still like eggplant. But when we had to get to Israel, our choir had to get to Israel, so we flew to England, and then we had to meet a boat in France, in Marseille, I think it was Marseille, which is a city in France, and was an old rinky-dinky boat that they had to bring a lot of refugees who came from Europe, came in that boat. I remember it was called the Negba. It was called the Negba, and they had Jewish sailors, which was so different. Everything, everyone spoke Hebrew on the boat, and we couldn't. That was the first time we could really hear how the language was, and we had to learn a song, one song. All the choirs were on that boat. A lot of choirs had to meet and be on that boat. They were up on the flagpole, and they were all over the place. So anyhow, they were on different decks all over there, and a musician came from Israel to teach us one song. And you know how many people had to learn that song? 2,000 people from all over. And it was the most beautiful song. I still remember it. You know that song? You know where it's from? You know where it's from? It was a contest in Israel, and a lot of people had a right, if they were musicians, they could compose a song, and then they had a winner. This song was the winner, and it was so beautiful, we used to cry, and so a man had to come and teach it to us. We didn't know it, and we were going to sing it to all 2,000 people. I get goosebumps again. And we were going to sing that song. So he he didn't know what language to speak. So he climbed up a deck, no, a flagpole, all the way up. He climbed up so we could see him. And everyone was on different decks. He'd say, altos, this deck, sopranos, that deck, bass, that deck, because there were men also in all the choirs. And he taught us that song, but he didn't know how. He didn't know how to speak or what to speak. The only word he could say was in Yiddish, and I learned that word. Ataman means to breathe. So he'd go, Ataman, and we'd all breathe. That was all he ever said to us, Ataman. And we learned the song. And it was magnificent, just magnificent. When we performed 2,000 Voices in Tel Aviv, there were, Ramat Gan, it was in Ramat Gan, and they had built a new stadium, and we were the first to use it. And just being there was so wonderful. Anyhow, so they were living here a long time already, and I just, we used to come and visit all the time, and I loved coming, and we used to come on sabbaticals when your father was born here. Did you know that? He was born here. Yeah, on one of our first sabbatical, 1969, giving away his age, but that's okay. Anyhow, as long as I'm not giving mine away. So they, and then when they said they want to come, your parents want to come, I didn't have any problem. I said, I'm packing up and I'm coming with you, and that's what we did. And it was so exciting to come and live here. And Adina was here, and these are the two kids and the grandchildren. And everyone, I think everyone was already born. Yes, when we came, yeah, of course, everyone was already born when we came in Aliya. And to be here, 7 years that you're here, and the 7 years that I'm here, same time, we came on the same plane, nefesh b'nefesh. And it's just the most wonderful place to be. First of all, living in Jerusalem, it's just wonderful. But having all of you here and the grandkids and seeing you all grow, and you're all so great.
Okay, so why did you decide to make Aliya?
Why did we decide to make Aliya?
Yes.
That is a great question, because you know what, Temima, the truth is, when we left Brooklyn, we left a really, really good life. You know what was good in our life in Brooklyn? We loved our house.
Mm-hmm.
We loved our babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
We loved our family that was there, all our relatives that were there.
Mm-hmm.
Abba loved his job in shul, and I loved all the people in shul, and I loved the hospital, and I loved the teachers that I had in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
And I was so happy there.
Mm-hmm.
But still, we decided to leave everything and come here.
Why?
Well, not because things were bad there, but because Abba and I always had this dream of living in Israel. Because the truth is, we really wanted to raise you here because we felt like you would have the best life as a Jewish girl if you were in Israel. So even though we had all that great stuff there, we decided to leave it and bring you here, and Ephraim and Acham and Yehuda, so that everybody would have a really good life in Israel. And you know when I wanted to do that? From what age?
I didn't see you in high school.
The truth is, yeah, but in high school I didn't really think that I was going to live in Israel so much. It was really when I was 18 and I came to Israel for the year to learn here, like Chana told you that she did. So I also came when I was 18 and something clicked. I don't know what it was. I was just walking around and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to be here. This is where I really feel at home, even though I always loved Boston. But something about Israel just made me feel, I have to be here. And you know when I really knew I'm coming back? When I left that year. I left in June. And I got on the plane and I was sitting on the plane. And my seat was right over the wheels. You know on an airplane there are wheels?
Yeah.
And my seat was right over the wheels.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard the wheels as they were lifting off of the ground.
Yeah.
Because when a plane takes off, the wheels come
Yeah.
off. And when the wheels lifted off the ground of Israel, I felt like my heart was ripped out of me. And I started crying. Because I felt like,
So
oh my
what
gosh.
did he do?
So that was when I made a decision. Right in that seat, I said, that's it. I am coming back here. And we did. And Abba and I always planned all the years, we're going to live here. I don't know if you remember, we used to come. We came to Sarah's bat mitzvah, Mira's bat mitzvah. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we bought the land that we built this house on. And then we built the house and we were so excited. We would show you pictures. And then we came.
What do you think about the decision? Was it a good decision?
Yeah,
Why?
because I have awesome friends.
You have awesome friends, right? What else is good about living in Israel?
I don't know. I guess just knowing two languages maybe.
Knowing two languages is great, right? What about every time it's a holiday for you, it's a holiday for the whole country? What about that?
But also for the whole nation.
And also for the whole nation, right? What about that we live on a street that we know that Avram Avinu walked right in this neighborhood? How cool is that? That didn't happen in Brooklyn too often. I don't think Avram Avinu walked around Brooklyn so much. What do you think? Right?
No.
What else is really cool about living in Israel?
I get to walk around by myself in the street.
Right? It's safer for you here. That's true.
Uh-huh.
You're right. What about the fact that all the mitzvot that you do here are super special?
Like what?
Any mitzvah that we do here is super special. Any mitzvah that we do in Israel is extra special because we're doing it in Israel.
What's the most exciting part of you living in Israel?
The most exciting thing for me living in Israel? There's so many. But I guess I would say really watching you and Ephraim and Nachum and Yehuda really feeling connected to everything that's going on here. Like when you go on a tiyul and you feel so excited about learning more about Israel, or all the conversations we have about the army, and trying to understand what that's all about and what it means that your brothers are going to be in the army and that you're going to do things for the country also, right? Those kind of conversations, trying to really understand what it means to be connected to Israel. So really my favorite part of being here is watching you being here. That's my favorite part.
ואיפה, איפה רוח אלוקים? אז זה גן עדן נעוריי, בו הולכים השועלים. אל החיטה, אל ארץ טוב, אל אדמה ברוכה. שבתי, שמעתי קול מוכר, בניי חצו מדבר, עברו עוד ים, מתוך לשכת נכר. שמעתי קול שופר.
אך בת הקול שבי בכתה ודמעותיה בגלויותיי. עתה צוחקת, מתרוננת, קולה עולה מבין בניי.